Hey, my name is Sam Bone. In this video, we're going to go over step-parent adoptions and go over just the basics of if you are a step-parent or if you know a step-parent that's looking to adopt, how to get this done. Step-parent adoption are the most common form of adoption. With divorce rates at more than 50%, it is common for adults to help raise their spouse's children. Right now, more than ever, you see that there's more than just mother and father that are helping to raise children. We've got grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and then most commonly our step parents that are helping raise children. Especially with the opioid epidemic, we see absent parents more often, and this has increased the number of step parents that are adopting. So the Alabama Adoption Code is a law that covers how adoptions are to be done. Specifically, there is a code, which code is a law that covers step-parent adoptions. And that's section 2610A27. It says any person may adopt his or her spouse's child according to the provisions of this chapter, except that before filing the petition for adoption, the adoptee must have resided for a period of 1 year with the petitioner. So the step parent has to have lived with the child for a period of 1 year. A benefit next for a step parent adoption is there's no investigation, that a pre-investigation done by DHR, and there's no charges that have to be done for that investigation. So that's one of the benefits of a step parent adoption compared to a regular adoption. My name is Sam Bone. I'm a Gadsden, Alabama adoption lawyer, and I help people adopt children. Whether you're a step parent, whether you're an aunt, uncle, cousin, grandparent, I help formalize what people already know, that you are the person raising this child, and then we put it in the eyes of the law and make it legal. I've got a copy of my Google reviews. I've got over 227. I have 227 Google reviews with a 4.9 star average. And then in 2015, I was named a top 40 under 40 lawyer. So where do you file an adoption? Adoptions are filed in probate court. So here in Etowah County, the probate court judge is Judge Scott Hassel. So we file those petitions in probate court. And you file it in the county in which the adoptee resides or has a legal residence. So do biological parents have to agree? And I'm not going to go into the woods on this, but generally the concept of the consent of the adoptee's mother and father are required in all adoptions. They're required in all adoptions. There's a question for what is consent, but this requirement is not waived or exempted in a step-parent adoption. And I go deep into the definitions of consent in another one of my YouTube videos. It's do you need consent for step-parent adoption in Alabama? So check that out if you're trying to figure out, do I have consent or not? Without the consent of both natural parents, adoptions are much more complicated and need to be handled by an experienced adoption attorney, as then they may involve implied consent. Again, that's where we go back to, you need to check out that other video or contact me to know whether you've got implied consent rather than actual express consent where they actually sign. So does the child have to agree? Only if the child is 14 years or older. If the child is under that, the child does not have to consent, and the court does not even ask the child. In Alabama, do you have to be married to the biological parent to adopt if you're the step parent? Yes. Even if you've lived with the legal parent for many years, the first requirement to be met is that the petitioning parties are husband and wife, which I would think that would change with same-sex couples now, but the wording is husband and wife. The adoption code makes no exception for couples living together who are not married. So here's the adoption code on who may adopt. It says any adult person or husband and wife jointly. So how long do you have to live with the child before you can file for adoption? And the law says here that you must have lived with the child for 1 year in a step-parent adoption. So what does the adoption petition contain? The petition has requirements of what you must have. You've got to have information regarding the petitioner, address, name, date of birth, names of the parents, names, date of birth, things like that, the child's name, date of birth, address, marital status of the petitioners, the child's birth name, and then what the name you want to be for the child after the adoption. And then you also have to let the court know how long the adoptee has resided with the petitioner or the step parent. And then also you've got to have the consents of the mother and the father as well. I'm going to show you an example here of an adoption petition. This is one from Madison County. It just shows it has all the information that you will need. So what else do you have to show the court? You've got to have the marriage license and the original birth certificate and any other previous court order adjudicating the father of the child, just to show that you're making sure that we are terminating the rights of the correct father and not a different father. So who gets notice of the petition? The notice of the petition has to be served on the biological parents unless they waive notice, and DHR. We have to serve them just like we do any other case, and it's important to serve DHR in the right way. You've got to serve it, I'll show you, to this address rather than local DHR. A lot of times people will serve DHR in Montgomery, in their local office, and that's not correct. Here is a sample letter that we will send, where you send it to, and you attach the interlocutory decree, and here is the notice that you will send to DHR. So why is DHR served? The reason being is DHR will search their child abuse and neglect registry, and they will also check birth certificates to make sure that you're terminating the right biological father and compare it to the consents that you have. Is there a DHR investigation or home study? Typically, there is a requirement for a DHR home study. However, as part of a step-parent adoption, the pre-placement and the post-placement investigation is not required unless the probate court requires an investigation. And also, generally, you have to do an accounting of all money that's been spent on the step-parent adoption, and that's not, in an adoption, but that's not required in a step-parent adoption. How long does the adoption take? The code explicitly requires the probate judge to set the final hearing within 90 days of filing the petition. So what happens at the final hearing? Once the probate judge has reviewed the final petition, the consents, and the acknowledgement letter from DHR, a final hearing will be set. Must be done within 90 days of filing the petition. At this hearing, the probate judge must find by clear and convincing evidence that the adoptee has resided with the petitioner for the required time, all consents have been obtained, that service has been made on all parties, and all contests have been resolved or consents have been resolved, and finally that it's in the adoptee's, the child's best interest for the final adoption to be entered. After the hearing, if the court determines that all those requirements have met, a written decree will be entered and show the new name of the adoptee. The adoptee will be accorded the same status as a biologically born child of the petitioner, including all rights of inheritance, and it also terminates the parental rights of the consenting parent. So from now on, the petitioner will no longer be treated as a step parent, will be treated as the natural child. and they will have the responsibility to raise that child until the child reaches the age of majority. So, for instance, if you divorce, you could get custody, or you could end up paying child support. I mean, at that point, you are no different than any other biological parent. So, if you want more information, we'll have a link here in the description or comments to get a step-parent adoption checklist to give you more details about what you would need to do to get a step-parent adoption started. You can call me and set up a consultation, or email me, and I've got my email here.